So do you want to know how to joint boards without a joiner? Because joiners are very expensive. In this video, I'll show you a simple jig that you can make to joint boards perfectly on your table saw. Let's get to it. Alright guys, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this 3/4 inch piece of plywood, probably about a third of it, and this part is going to go on top of the base. That's where the clamps are going to sit. And so the first thing I have to do is I have to put that on top of the base, clamp it down, and here I'm drilling pilot holes where I'm going to put screws. I was going to glue it down, but I thought, there's really no need. And if I ever want to remove it, it's going to be a lot easier if I just use screws. Alright, now I am trimming off the excess on this side because this is the side that's going to run up against the table saw fence, and I want it to be nice and flat. Guys, be careful when you're using a table saw. Don't never stand directly behind the blade. Alright, so now I am marking the holes for the clamps. I'm using a Sharpie, and then I will make pilot holes with a drill bit. That way I don't split the wood when I drive in the screws. Okay, so now I can put my clamps in place and just kind of start the screws, and then once they're all started I can tighten them down. Be careful not to over tighten them. I put the clutch setting on my drill very low so I wouldn't over tighten them, because you will strip the threads in there. And the reason why I'm using 3 of them is because if I have shorter pieces of board, I can utilize just 2. Alright guys, so here's the jig we made. As you saw, I cut off this side so that I can get this side flat and parallel to the fence. And I put these clamps on. They're cheap clamps. I'll leave them in the link in the description below. They are adjustable in and out. And so what you do is, I'll show you, but you basically put your workpiece on here like this, and you leave a little bit of hangover. And then when you clamp these down, it's in place and it can't move. And when you run this on your table saw on this side against your fence, then it's going to cut a parallel flat surface on this side. And then you remove it, flip it over, and run the other side through the table saw, and you got 2 sides that are flat and parallel to each other. So I'll show you what that looks like. Alright guys, so I chose this piece of MDF, and as you can see, it's pretty wonky. Well, I cut it on my bandsaw to do that on purpose so that you could see that no matter how messed up the board is, you can still use this. So I'm going to lay it on the jig, clamp it down, run it through the table saw on one side, and then remove it, flip it over, run the other side through, and we should get 2 flat and parallel sides, just like a joiner would give you. So I'll show you what that looks like. Alright guys, so now I'm putting this piece in the jig, clamping it down, just making sure there's a little overhang there. Run it right through, and you got 1 flat side. Now you can remove it from the jig, flip it around, and then you can use that flat side you just cut up against the fence, and you got a perfectly squared piece of board. Alright guys, so it really is that simple. The jig was super easy to make, as you could see, and obviously this is not a piece of oak or cherry or not even pine. This is a piece of MDF, but the principle is still the same. So when you clamp this in the jig, it's referencing the flat side of the jig against the fence, and then the table saw will cut this 1 flat side, and then when you remove it and you turn it over, it references that flat side that you just made, and makes your other flat side, and it makes it perfectly parallel. So not only is it jointing the one side, but when you flip it over, it's planing it to the exact thickness. Now I measured this, and it's perfectly 4 inches on both sides, and it's great. So if you're in a bind, this is a great jig to make. It doesn't cover every thickness of boards because it's going to be hard to clamp anything maybe over 2 inches, but it is effective, and it can save a lot of money if you don't have the budget for a joiner. So anyways, that's the video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did like it, please leave a like, please comment, please subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks guys, bye.